My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Komm du noch?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rachel.
And this is Astrology Table for Two.
And there's always a third chair for you. So this is Rachel.
And this is April.
And this is Astrology Table for Two, where there is always another chair for you. Jordan, we miss you. Your seat is open. We're thinking of you. But we're also thinking about the full moon in Taurus, which is happening on the 17th of November at 3:29 p.m. Central Standard Time at 24 degrees of Taurus. Now, that's real close to being exactly opposite your sun. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or is it to the degree opposite your sun?
It is so close. So, oh my gosh, let me look.
And y'all, this is a couple of degrees from my sun, actually. So I've got the sun at 27 Taurus.
Yes.
Felt this.
We feel it. Okay, yeah, my sun is at 26 degrees of Scorpio.
Oh, so our suns oppose like almost perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
How fascinating. Mm-hmm. And this moon is interacting with both. So this is kind of a charged area of the zodiac. And I want to start out saying Taurus, to remind everyone, is our fixed earth sign ruled by Venus. It's the second sign represented by the bull and ruling the neck, throat, shoulders, and ears. But we're also really close to an interesting star, and you added this to the notes, April.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the most fearsome
stars. I am obsessed with this star. It's called Algol, and it is known as the origin of the Medusa myth. Also, it correlates with the mythology around Lilith, and it's about beheadings. And I know you have a history with this star, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting dynamic. So you can see this come out in play in culture and in your personal life in so many ways. Algol was very activated, and I don't remember the exact transit, but during the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial.
Yep.
It came into play. We think about a public beheading, someone being canceled. Mm-hmm. It's like them being cut off. Because the story of Medusa is actually incredibly tragic, and the way that we have these mythologies around women, and especially women that we associate as monstrous.
Victim blaming.
Yes. It's a complete victim blame situation. And so if I invite people to revisit the true Medusa story and understand that she was absolutely a victim that was turned into a monster.
Quick summary. The god Neptune is in love with Medusa because she's gorgeous. Everyone's in love with her. She's a human. He pursues her and violates her in the temple of Athena, which she ran to for refuge. And Athena was pissed. So she was like, you know what, Medusa, I'm going to turn you into a monster because you've desecrated my temple.
Yeah. As if
women blaming
Medusa's
women.
fault. Yeah. I was just going to say women, that they say there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women.
Athena is the sort of goddess of war. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this myth is also kind of real close to that, where women can be pugilistic, women can be warlike.
Oh, absolutely.
And women can also really, get into it with other women. It's not just men.
No, absolutely not. It can be the most vitriolic.
And I think that Amber Heard scenario was really great to bring up. I also want to bring up that the closest aspect to this moon is a conjunction the moon is making with Uranus retrograde at 25 Taurus. And this is between Algol and the moon. Algol is at 26 Taurus. Uranus is at 25 Taurus, and this full moon's at 24 Taurus. So Algol is being hyperactivated by Uranus too.
And that scares me a little bit.
Uranus is the planet of shock, change, disruption, and innovation. So I have here, I'm saying personal earthquakes, disruptions to regular pleasures, sensory overload, novel sensation, and potential seismic shifts, specifically in relationship.
Yeah,
This is still Venus territory. So
exactly.
not necessarily negative, right? Like we can have something happen thinking about, right, the first time that you made love or tried ayahuasca or, got drunk, right? Like this state change or this awareness change, which can be positive,
Mm-hmm.
but they can also be very negative.
Well, it can also be deeply transformational and impactful for the good and the bad. If you you drink too much, you can be hungover. It
Yep.
could be something where you have this amazing spiritual awakening, but you come face to face with dark things in the process.
Mhm.
So be aware that whatever's happening to you, for you, there is an opportunity for it to be for your good, but you have to capture that.
I think awakening and trauma lie a little bit closer together
Yeah.
than we sometimes think. And it can often be either our perspective or also our degree of agency, right? Like we can choose to have a sexual experience
Mm-hmm.
or one can be forced upon you. And those
Right.
have very different outcomes
Very different.
in terms of the potential for joy or for heartbreak. And I think that with Uranus in Venus's sign on this full moon, there's going to be some really high emotions around the new experiences or the sudden experiences that we're having. I do like, though, that this moon is ruled by Venus, right? And she is at 4 degrees of Capricorn,
Mm-hmm. I love that.
where she's a triplicity ruler, but it's also like Venus and Capricorn, your girl gets shit done.
Yeah.
She works with what she's got. She serves up her sort of medicine, pleasure. It's like what's needed. That's me.
Oh, yeah. I think this is particularly interesting in the context of commitment and long-term relationships and setting long-term goals, 5-year plans, making progress toward those goals, focusing on the future. I think it's a really good idea to think about where you want to be, whether it's a year from now, a couple years from now. How are you road mapping out the next significant steps to get there? And know that the energy of the universe is behind you to focus on that and to get it done. It's like the wind is at your back in that way.
And there's a lot of energy around, so we'll have to channel it somewhere.
Yeah.
And what I love is that this Venus in Capricorn can process the moment,
Mm-hmm.
or she can navigate the path and the journey, right? So, or both, right, at the same time, where if we're being practical, we're dealing with what's in front of us, what's urgent or emergent, but then also we have an eye toward what's important, what our goals are. And this moon promises to bring big stuff. It's going to really, I don't want to scare people, but if something surprises you later this week, right, this is, I think the 17th is a Sunday. Yes. So probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like some shocking things could take place. And it could really change your idea of what the future looks like.
Wow. I'm particularly paying attention because, as Rachel and I were discussing before we started recording, this is going to hit my natal chart in a really big way because my birthday is November 18th. So my annual solar return is very closely aligned with this full moon. And just a quick note for those who maybe aren't as in-depth on astrology, to one thing that I just find to be helpful to think about, wherever the sun is, so we know we're Scorpio season right now, when whatever that full moon is going to be, will be in the opposite sign because that's how, the light of the sun is shining directly on the moon. So we're directly opposite of each other. So if sun is in Scorpio, full moon will be in Taurus. If sun is in Taurus, full moon will be in Scorpio. And we can do that all around the chart. So just a little tip.
Uranus loves to spread that Promethean fire of knowledge. So.
Yeah, I love it.
Also, Mercury's in Sag at this point, and so I think there's the potential for us to both get excited about learning new things,
Yes.
especially with this Uranus involvement with the moon, but also for us to lose our heads, to use the
Yeah.
algal words
Yeah.
and like get, you know how sometimes you get down rabbit holes and you're like so incited, you're so energized or evoked by what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and you might not be paying attention to like your dishwasher's overflowing or something.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Just
you're like,
like-
wait, I need to get in the moment.
Where was my head at in that moment? That kind of, I love those phraseologies and idioms because they really do help make it feel real life. Losing your head can also mean like losing your shit a little bit, kind of popping off, getting angry or overexcited or just overly taken up in the moment and kind of forgetting your surroundings. Think about like a little kid being enamored in a toy store and then all of a sudden they realize, where's my mom? Like,
Right.
I just got so swept up in looking around. I was not paying attention to where I was in my surroundings.
And I want to add to that too, that Saturn stations direct on the same day as this moon. And we
Yeah.
didn't talk about it last time. I don't have it in the upcoming transits, but I kind of want to wrap
Yeah,
it in.
I'd love to.
Because Saturn stations direct in Pisces at 8:37 in the morning. And in my mind, just what you're saying, you know, when you're a child and you are so sure, if you're a child who's lucky enough to be taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
that you will be taken care of, that you feel licensed to or permission to just totally check out and do whatever you're doing, pay attention to whatever you're paying attention to, like the toys.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like you have to be responsible for where's my guardian? Am I okay? Do I have enough? Because you've been provided for.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this Saturn station direct is like that first time you get lost in the mall and you're like, oh, it's me. Like I have to do something. I'm lost.
I love this so much. I was just having a conversation with someone where talking about children as they grow up, we teach them these things, like even with whether it's pool safety and like swimming and drowning or like being out with your friends and driving for the first time, whatever stage of life you're in, there are concepts that we hear and then there's life lessons. The first time you're in an accident and you realize, oh my gosh, my car can physically hit another car. And that is so scary. Even if it's just a fender bender, the concepts of safety and awareness become real. And that is so relevant here.
Well, and with the moon in Taurus, the abstract becomes material.
Yes.
Especially because, you know, hey, listen, this moon is sextile to Saturn by sign, which is a positive thing. So we have the opportunity to really grow and mature. But also, this is an exalted moon. I haven't mentioned yet that the moon it's in its favorite place when it's in Taurus. So even though Uranus is there and it might be like a really loud, rambunctious person in your favorite lounge or something, right? Like it might be a little bit different than usual. But this moon is here to bring us good things. This Saturn connection and station direct is here to, I think, help us move forward. And especially in ways that are about the stewardship of things that have more heavy themes, like you wrote in here, like grief, right? Emotional maturity, healing. These are not childlike things. Saturn isn't childlike.
No, it is the adult.
And I think for us to fully harness this, like I said, there's a lot of energy. It has to go somewhere. Making a choice to accept consequences and plan for how to move through those. I feel like that is this moon at its best. It's like, oh, something changed. Now what?
Now
What do I do with my new awareness, with this new process or experience? How do I manifest what I want with this energy, given that it's right here?
And yeah, so the answer is not to bury your head in the sand and to avoid and to hide. It's to say, all right, I need maybe some radical honesty, some
yes,
radical responsibility and self-ownership and awareness. And then take that and figure out how you're going to get back up and move forward.
I have a theory, and I'm going to say it here because we're recording this actually the Sunday before the moon. So this is 1 week before the moon. I feel like we're going to see some major boycotts come out.
Oh, I
like
would
some
believe
sudden
that.
boycotts, and it's people who are upset about one thing or another thing being like, you know what, I'm going to withhold my support monetarily or financially of this brand or organization. And I think some There's going to be some social justice stuff that pops off.
Oh, I feel like the whole world is doing a big inhale just to exhale in kind of a proverbial scream.
Or like a sneeze.
A sneeze.
It's fall, right?
Just chew.
Well, and sometimes, sneezes can be cute and small, and sometimes they can be like immense and coming from the
Earth-shattering.
depth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the driving metaphors, being an adult is not being afraid when you're sneezing while driving. You're
That's
used
so
to it. You're
true.
like, I know exactly how to deal with this.
I can close my eyes for a second and not panic.
Right. I still remember 16-year-old me being like, oh my God, do I pull over? Like, what do I do?
What do I do? That is hilarious.
But dealing with an experience like that, I mean, that's a small and silly example, but I think we could be dealing with like a shocking experience for the first time. And then that Saturn involvement, the Venus in Capricorn, maybe you feel accomplished when you move through it, or like when you're like, you know what? I'm going to flip this over and use that new potential energy to do something that I feel good about.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts about the Saturn station?
No, I think we covered it.
I think, though, I want to make sure we call back to Saturn got to this point like March of last year, I think was when it was at 12 degrees. I think it stationed retrograde in June, but it didn't really move from the 12th degree. Pretty much last spring, early summer, that theme, but right now.
Yes.
Second
That's going to
pass.
come back around for sure.
And I mean, I remember, just to use an example we're both working with, that period of time is when I opened Herringbone. And coming back around to like, now you're there and dealing with some similar things. I'm dealing with the brand new of a different job. So it's like the same vantage point, dealing with something new. And from a completely different perspective.
I love it. Yeah. It's so interesting when things tie together so neatly.
In like a bow.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that
that's good.
ties in perfectly for our break, for a word, for some potential sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
Okay, we're going to talk about some transits of this lunar cycle. The first one is Pluto entering Aquarius on Tuesday, November 19th at 1:51 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we know that Aquarius is the fixed air sign ruled by Saturn. It's the 11th sign of the zodiac, represented by the water bearer. So don't get confused. This is an air sign represented by a water bearer and ruling the lower legs and circulatory system.
Clouds. Think clouds.
Yes.
But I'm sure that this is the most talked about and like hotly anticipated transit.
Oh, hugely.
I mean, how many years have we been hearing about like the age of
Aquarius?
Yeah, exactly.
It's here.
And when people talk about that, I know they're talking about like something else, right? Dealing with the what is the name? This technical name, the precession of the equinoxes, right?
Oh yeah.
The age of air
Yeah.
is what we've entered. So where these major conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn will be in air signs for the next couple hundred years. But to me, the mini or the more immediate age of Aquarius is this Pluto changing signs. And it's been doing this. It's been flirting with this sign boundary for a year plus. But this is the last time it will leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius in our lifetimes. So it will be in Aquarius until 2043. It's a long time.
It is a long time.
So if you have Aquarius placements, major Aquarius placements, also major Leo placements, get ready for some transformation along that axis for sure.
Yes. I mean, Aquarius is that beautiful look at what can we've talked about this before, how we move from Aquarius to Pisces, where Aquarius gets to dream the dreams. It gets to cast vision. It gets to download almost extraterrestrial godly insight and wisdom, otherworldliness. It's almost like an access point or a portal to something that we need to call in from another dimension into our lifetime. It's innovation. It's creativity. It's zany. It's a little weird and funky, eclectic. And so to have Saturn, this ruler of slowdowns and boundaries, Aquarius is boundaryless in a way.
It's fixed, but it's also sort of that ability to center, focus, and understand and integrate all information.
Okay. So then I think it's going to be such a cool partnership.
I think it's going to be really cool. And I appreciate you bringing in, because I don't know how I didn't write this in the notes, but Saturn will have stationed direct, like literally a couple of days before that in Pisces.
Yeah.
And so we are really dealing with both of these themes. Pluto's entering Saturn's sign, Saturn stationing direct. They're in Pisces. And in modern astrology, they give Uranus, who's mixed up in the full moon hardcore, they give Uranus rulership of Aquarius. Now, I don't subscribe to that, but I do think that Uranus and Aquarius, there's like a harmonizing between them, similar symbolic meanings. Like, what do we call the storage of all data digitally? We call it the cloud.
Exactly.
Right? And it takes all of, so what's the common element with things that are alive? It's water, right? So all of us are these 70+% watery beings, and all of our thoughts, all of our data, all of our learnings, all of our creations are here in this connected online space, which to me is so Aquarian.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like with Pluto coming in here, there's going to be some powerful advances in technology.
AI comes to mind in a big way.
And we've been flirting with AI since literally the first Pluto dipping its toe into Aquarius.
Yes.
But Pluto governs, right, power and those power dynamics, but also fear and rebirth itself. Because as the new emerges, the old paradigms die and new ones have to be reborn. To me, this is a huge, like, things going digital, interconnection being huge. Aquarius is also Saturn's sign of revolution, as opposed to Capricorn being the sign of tradition. So I feel like we might have some revolutions.
Oh, absolutely.
Around the globe.
Expect that. And it's under it's when I feel like there's this pressure cooker of energy that's been building and building and building. And just like you said, we're going to have that sneeze or that release. Somewhere something's going to blow, and it's going to be a pressure release valve, and it could be absolutely wild. It could be something related to data and information sharing, something that AI brings to the table that totally disrupts how we do life, how we do work. I'm very curious to see how this plays out.
And I think it's amazing as we've approached this transit, especially since the election happened. We've had cryptocurrency back in the news, and like this boom, this explosion in value for cryptocurrency. And I feel like there will be some bubbles which burst. I mean, there are always bubbles.
Always bubbles that pop.
Like one Bitcoin is $79,000, I think, at the time we're recording this. And I don't think it will stay there. But I really do think that it's highlighting that currency is going to become more information-based. I mean, the biggest companies nowadays making the most money are using data to do that. And so I feel like this is where the Pluto's coming in. Like, we're going to have all of these power struggles and shifts around like who owns what data. Do I own it? Does the company own it? Who gets to monetize it? 23andMe goes out of business. Who gets to deal with everybody's genetic codes?
It's terrifying,
Right.
truly. Like yeah. I mean, I was even talking to my sister about using, AI to do certain things. She was like, okay, I want you to be very careful because if you give too much personal information, like they're using your data for learning to teach the system. And then that just opens you up. So she's like, just be very, very careful what you put in, use it, but be mindful of what data you want to share. So I think this is a good moment for everyone to kind of shore up your systems, double check passwords, just do some due diligence around your information, your privacy, your data.
And I think it also must be noted that as Pluto enters Aquarius, it's also coming back into that exact opposition with Mars, which is now at the beginning of Leo. It won't get past 6 degrees of Leo before it stations retrograde. So we started this opposition weeks ago, but now it's in 2 different signs. And this is the only place where we'll have this opposition. So I feel like things that were internal, like, when you have some fear and it can be kind of internalized, or maybe the trauma you haven't shared, maybe it's repressed. And I feel like this is the external, where maybe now I'm going to talk about it on social media. Maybe I uncover a memory using some new therapy, which, like I've known people who have done tapping, right? Or EMDR, and then recovered memories of traumas they had no idea about. And I feel like this has that kind of a feeling, especially with Mars in Leo, like it's personal. Mars in Cancer and Leo, it's personal. And I feel like all of us collectively, and maybe personally in our lives too, there's like me and then the group I'm a part of, and there's what I want, and then there's what I feel like I'm afraid of, or the powers that I'm fighting, right? And I think that we see this a lot with the way people are online about the war in Gaza.
Oh, yeah.
That's to me huge Mars in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius energy. Because it's going to pop off. Like it's kind of been.
It's been like these, we've had these micro, it's not truly micro, it's hugely impactful to everybody in those communities and surrounding areas. These are big things that are happening. But we've almost been dancing around the idea of a big explosion, of something really like a point of no return. And that could potentially come into play.
Socially, it feels like we're collectively, United States, globally, about to sort of crash out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, it reminds me of a kid who's super tired.
Yeah.
Who's like angry and tired.
And running around and like cannot calm down because they're so exhausted.
And they're going to run until they just
hit a
fall
wall.
asleep.
Yeah. Literally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I hope that there will be some sorts of positive global shifts in power, some sort of populism, maybe, like that's good for us. Culturally, I hope that we get to do this democratization of like who gets and we're already doing this with social media, who gets a platform, right? And giving everyone the platform, not just the people that the elite choose. Like, okay, you get to be on TV.
Sorry. I wanted to wait until a pause.
I was expecting a sneeze. I was like, come on now. We need
Look at the sneeze. It was just a cough.
It's allergy season here.
With my party last night, I was just yapping away. And so now I have a sore throat.
Mercury in Sagittarius?
Yes.
Never. We're not yapping at all.
No, and just can't shut up.
Speaking of Sagittarius, let's transition to our second transit, the sun entering Sagittarius on Thursday, November 21st at 1:55. I put CST. I think this is AM, but I don't remember. So 1:55 on that day.
On that day.
And Sagittarius is the 9th sign, the mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter and represented by the centaur Archer. It rules the thighs, the legs, and the liver. So Mercury's already there. Venus just left. And now we have the sun in Sag. So the sun and Mercury there. Mercury's doing its retrograde. To me, this gives us more chatting energy than ever. With like sun and Sag, usually we're just kind of laid back, having a good time, exploring, discovering. And I feel like now we want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. and work stuff out. I feel like this could be a time to hash out the things that you didn't have energy to process before, or like, let's go deeper. Let's like really look at this from every angle. Let's sit down. Let's have a powwow. Let's do the work. Maybe this is like you join a group therapy session, or you just express yourself more openly, like you were saying earlier about taking things internal, making them public, saying things out loud for the first time.
And there's something really powerful about that.
Oh yeah.
About saying something that you've never said.
Yeah.
Especially if you've wanted to say it. And I think it's important too. We were talking about Pluto, which was in Capricorn. It's going from an earth sign to an air sign. The sun was in a water sign. Now it's going to a fire sign. Mercury's in a fire sign. Mars was in a water sign. Now it's in a fire sign. Like energy is up.
Heating up.
Yes. And I feel like the moon in Taurus, the full moon cycle we're talking about, usually chill. Usually very decadent. I feel like it's going to be a lot more like all of a sudden stuff starts to happen and you're like, wait, where was my rest? I thought I was going to rest. And like you actually pulled an all-nighter.
Yeah, accidentally.
Right.
Yeah, like you look up and it's like the sun is rising. How did this happen?
Yes. And maybe it's because everything was in Sagittarius and we were all just like sitting around having drinks, yapping.
Yep, and yapping. Could also be like a travel day that never ends. Like you fly from one time zone to another time zone and it just like keeps going and you're like, I have literally not been in a bed for 36 hours.
Yes. And like with delays, especially because Mercury's in its retrograde shadow. So maybe you're like, wait, I didn't want a 21-hour layover in Amsterdam. Shit's going off here right now. Like, should I stay in the airport? I don't know.
I've had a 10-hour layover in the Amsterdam airport. It was actually kind of nice.
I made the mistake of, as a Taurus, Rachel Taurus would, I went to Amsterdam and I was like, yo, give me the strongest bud you have.
Yeah.
And then I woke up the next day and was like, I missed everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to leave Amsterdam as soon as I got here.
Oh, no.
Didn't even remember the fun I had.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But I feel like there is that potential with Sun and Sag for us to get really excited. And with Mercury there in its detriment as well, maybe for us to, like the full moon suggested, lose our heads, go too hard, stay up all night, try the really strong stuff, and then kind of go a little further than we imagined we might. But it's really good for, like you said, that harmony, the sort of team.
Being a team player, connecting with people. I love the idea whenever we can find a win-win in astrology, that feels like good magic. So everybody gets what they want. Nobody loses.
And I would take advantage of the time when the sun first enters Sagittarius, right after that, that Thursday time frame, because then it will be making a trine to Mars in Leo. And I like that. I think it'll be kind of like if you can be magnanimous, right? Mars in Leo at the high end is very generous and magnanimous. And I think we could have a really good time.
Yeah.
Like make some really positive changes.
A great like holiday party that maybe everyone is generous and you raise a ton of money for a good cause or something like that, where it feels like the moment is there. Everyone is heart forward. Everyone feels open. Curious. Yeah. Explore something new. Yeah. You could do some good work.
I like this for optimism. So if you've been feeling like a little bit heavy or laden, like, listen, Saturn's direct, like everything's out of Scorpio. Now we've got Sag stuff going on. Mars is out of Cancer. We've got a bit more dignity in the sky, especially because Venus moved. So I think we've got some of our mojo back with the Sun and Sag transit. So I like the idea of keeping it in our heads and hearts to use this as a, like, let's all rise together sort of a transit.
Beautiful.
And the sun will be here in Sagittarius, as it usually is, until December 21st when it enters Capricorn on the winter solstice. So the shortest day of the year, but it's a solid month of festivities, right? Yeah. We usually have our holiday parties before Christmas.
We do, yes. I love the solstice, the darkest night of the year. I think I use this as a time for thinking through what I want to bury, put to bed, lay to rest, sunset things, like what you can leave in the dark, how you can use the dark. What does the dark bring us? It brings us restoration, a pause, a breath, a moment.
To hibernate.
Yes, hibernation is a
Restore.
very key time. Yes, restore. So doing like deep restorative yoga where you're just really leaning into comforting poses. Some sound healing would be great during this time.
I'm about to lead a sound bath like right after this.
Can I come?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you actually can.
Okay.
You totally can. So that's happening. And also our third transit is happening.
Woo!
Mercury is stationing retrograde at 22 degrees of Sagittarius on Monday, November 25th at 8:42 p.m. Central Time. So pretty much as soon as the sun gets in, Mercury's like, all right, I'm gonna head back and meet up with you. And we'll have that Mercury Cazimi with Mercury retrograde. And that Cazimi will happen on the 5th of December. Lots of things happening in December. We'll talk about that next lunar cycle. But I do really think this could be the most confusing part of this whole lunar cycle.
Yeah, let's get into this. So we were making some comments about how things could just get weird and zany. Wacky stuff. This is like texts from some corporate office get leaked and someone's talking about weird stuff that you wouldn't expect. It's not just like a weird communication thing or a weird technology thing. You add a different layer on top of that. That is just like, are we living in a simulation? Is this real
to
life?
me also reminds me of V for Vendetta stuff, where like there's somebody who's like, you know what? I'm really fired up. I really like this is a religious type. Like I'm so convicted about stealing these corporate, bullshit stuff. Like I've got zeal. I've got values that are tied up in this.
Oh, that's good.
And I think also it's going to be because when Mercury's stationing, it's stationing by sign opposite to Jupiter. So we've got Mercury in a sign it's uncomfortable in, Sagittarius. And we've got Jupiter over there in Gemini, retrograde in a sign it's uncomfortable in. So I think it's kind of like seeing someone across the room and being like, I know who that is, but what the fuck are they doing here?
Yeah.
Like, I can't figure out how they ended up here.
Oh,
Like I knew them from some time when we were both in Tulum. Like, what are they doing in Waco?
Yeah, the context doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. And
Things
you're
are
like,
not
what?
lining up. Yeah, and just like I also for some reason came to mind is like showing up at an event and like you think it's a cost. It's like, okay, Legally Blonde because it's on my mind because it was the theme of my birthday party. Like showing up to a normal party in an insane costume because you thought it was a costume party. And it's like, I'm so out of place. I'm so confused. What happened here?
Stuff got mixed up.
There's a miscommunication, like being very ill prepared for the situation at hand.
I feel that way too. Like, when you're completely prepared, but not at all for the thing that ends up happening.
Yeah.
And you're like, it was supposed to rain. All the forecasts said rain. You brought your poncho and your umbrella and everything. And then all of a sudden it's like freezing cold. And you're like, wait, I have no jacket. What am I doing?
Yes. Like I did all the research. I did all the prep. And yet it made no difference.
I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Somehow.
It's like getting on the wrong flight and you think you're going to Alaska, but you end up in Fiji. And you're like, wait, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, totally. Because Mercury in Sagittarius has a hard time making the big picture into like mundane actions and details.
Right.
So maybe I was so stoked about my trip to Europe, but when I was booking, I just didn't realize that I was going to Paris, Texas. And you're like, how could I not realize? But maybe I was so wrapped up in the Eiffel Tower dreams that I just literally booked the wrong thing.
Totally.
It reminds me, do you remember when Trump, his campaign at one point, they were
the Four Seasons landscaping.
Yes, this is what this reminds me of.
That's exactly right. They thought they booked the Four Seasons. They ended up at Four Seasons landscaping, and it just.
And they still held the press conference.
They still held the press conference.
And everyone was like, what is going on?
Why are we here?
Yes.
Oh my God. Because that's the energy. It's like it feels scripted on a comedy show, but it's actually real life.
Yes. Yes. And I love that too, because we've got to remember Mercury's stationing at 22 Sag. Neptune's over there in Pisces at 27 Pisces being like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's a little illusion and disillusion.
Right. What's real?
What's real?
Like is this a simulation kind of a thing?
Yeah.
You're like, wait, did they mean to have it at the Four Seasons landscaping? Was this on purpose?
Was this actually planned? We don't know.
And you can't you literally can't get your mind around how everything coalesced into this actually going on.
Yeah, it's like all these dominoes had to fall in just the right way in order to create this bizarrely perfect scenario.
I feel like that for this.
Yeah,
totally.
100%.
And I think that it's going to be really interesting around the Cazimi, because I think we'll have an opportunity to have a flash of insight into like what's real. But then Mercury doesn't station direct until December 15th. So that's like a solid month.
Yeah.
Almost a month after it stations retrograde.
This may be, I mean, just to think about practically, it may be good not to travel until after December 15th if you're going to do something big. Or what do you think?
I'm there with you. I mean, listen, if
you have
to do something, astrology is something that describes the lived experience that we have. So if you're somebody who has a Mars at 22 Sag, like you're probably traveling. You can't
help it. Yeah.
But if you are somebody who, maybe has the opportunity to choose your schedule, maybe don't.
Yeah.
To your point, or if you do, know that things are going to get hilariously mixed up.
Pack your patience.
Yes. And also probably pack a bunch of supplies as if you were going into the woods.
Yes. Just be over prepared and don't discount the details. Double check. Make sure your passport hasn't expired. Just dot all the I's and cross all the T's just to help yourself out.
But with Mercury, the planet which is making the list and getting the tickets and packing the bag, with it in Sagittarius, get you somebody else who's got a great Mercury in Virgo or something, and just be like, hey, will you double check my packing list?
That's
or better yet, get ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And be like, would you make me a packing list?
Yes.
Because you're going to have to double check. And even if you double check, you might have looked 3 times and just not noticed you didn't have a toothbrush.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Outsource to somebody that can be a backup.
And I love the technology aspect, or somebody with a well-placed Mercury, because the ruler of Sag, Jupiter, is in Gemini. So whether it be AI or whether it be your really highly organized mother, there will be somebody who can take on that mercurial support role, because we're all going to need that.
Absolutely, we will.
Especially with this algal moon and us losing our heads.
Oh, yes. Can't wait to see how that plays out for me.
Well, we'll get to see the rest of the story when Mercury leaves its shadow on December 2nd of 2025. So it's not until the 2nd of January that we really get to move on past this kind of mental, spiritual territory. And our next lunation after that will be a new moon in Sagittarius. So we are not getting away from the Sagittarius stuff. And that will happen on December 1st.
Exciting.
So we will see you again. And hopefully our discussion is not totally scattered and insane during that time.
It actually might be.
Because Mercury will be combust as all get out.
Well, and hopefully Jordan will be here and the 3 of us can just have at it.
We got to have our Sag sun to light it all up, right?
We literally do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, April. Thank y'all all listening.
Thank you for having me. As always, it was a pleasure, Rachel.
And we'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.